What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into Barley Studios. Now, today in the studio, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be releasing the longest form content video on my YouTube channel, being almost 3.5 hours long. And the only reason that it's going to be that long is because we're going to be painting in real time. We're going to be painting this awesome abstract background in real time with you guys. Now, this will be a multiple session video over the span of this content video, and the reason for which is we have to wait for a lot of these layers to dry. But if you're looking to get into creating your own abstract paintings and backgrounds, then you're going to see a few different techniques, including some of these dots, drips, and splatter effects. Now, I'm going to paint all the splatter effects by hand in this video instead of doing an actual splatter on the floor itself, which makes it a little bit more challenging and difficult, but also it's a good kind of technique to pick up. That way you can kind of use that versatility in future paintings, whether or not the actual canvas is laying on the ground or not. So sit back and enjoy, guys, in this real-time video. I'll pop in throughout the video just to kind of give a description of what's going on. And just remember also, if you're watching this, you are a member of my YouTube channel. I appreciate your support, and I hope you are having a great day. Make sure you request specific videos in the future if you would like to. And remember, your commissioned artwork can and sometimes does appear on my YouTube channel. Sit back and enjoy, guys, as we paint in real time. Now remember, throughout this video, you can always rely on the timestamps, which are at the bottom of the progress bar for the video. You can also find those in the description below if you want to see the actual list of those. And I will also post those in the comments section, so just remember that. But of course, use those depending on what kind of different techniques and things you want to apply to your painting. Depends on how and what part of this long form video you would like to watch, right? Alrighty, so as we jump into some of the voiceover here, I will use voiceover content over this real-time painting just to kind of increase the entertainment value of the actual tutorial here. So we're going to go ahead and use voiceover throughout the process, and I'll fade in and out just when I want to, kind of bring in my 2 cents and talk about what I'm doing on the canvas. But just remember, you take the good with the bad, the slow with the fast. And although you have to build up the base layers, and sometimes those layers can be considered the boring parts of the video, but you have to go through those processes to build up to the fun stages. So hang tight, guys. I hope you guys enjoy the overall video. You can jump around if you want to, of course, using the timestamps to particular different pieces of this abstract background. But that's the whole goal, is that it's in real time and it is entertaining for you guys just to see overall process. A lot of times we time lapse all sorts of these types of pieces of artwork, and it's really hard to get the gist of how much time sometimes we as artists invest in the art pieces we're producing. Now this is a large canvas here, and as you can see, I'm just removing the plastic from the back of the canvas and around the front here. And I hate that they staple these little cardboard informational sheets to the canvas. I get it's part of the packaging, and it's fine, and they're just using one of the staples that are holding the canvas on the back of the framing here. I just don't like it, because when you pull away that cardboard, it gets stuck under those staples, and you have to cut that away with an X-Acto knife, because I do paint around to the back of the canvas. I always do. Even if I don't completely paint around it, I like to bring the paint around those top edges so that way it has a more complete look. Get rid of the plastic there, and we'll chunk it into the trash can there. So here we are. We got this beautiful canvas here. Now this is a very large canvas, a lot larger than we're used to using here on the YouTube channel. But I do work on canvases this large ever so often, and I'm gonna start challenging myself to go out of the way to produce more paintings of this substantial size. Now this, as I stated before in a previous kind of highlight clip, this is a Master Touch Grandeur collection. I really do love these. They have a lot of information on the front of the cardboard cutout for the packaging, all sorts of details and things like that. It is really great quality. I'm not going to run through all of these, but you can look for those as you buy your own canvases. Again, that is a Master's Touch canvas. And it is the Grandeur. I believe it's a 1.5 deep depth on the framing. and the size of the canvas. I like that depth because it just makes my artwork feel a little bit more archival. And but unless you want to like frame something, if you want to frame something, I would do something a lot less, you know, large, deep. I would go with more so of a canvas board, or maybe even a panel board. But when you're working on something this large, I wouldn't recommend a panel board or a wood board because you're likely to get kind of buckling or warping over time. You don't know what the humidity level is going to be in a customer's house or where they're going to be putting it when they purchase your artwork. So when you're working this large, I do recommend canvas. It just makes things a little bit easier. Yeah, it's a chore to kind of ship it. It always is, but the overall finished effect is a lot better for something this big when you don't use the canvas board, right? So canvas is the way. Now throughout this process, just remember we're going to start off with our base coats, and we're going to be using plain Jane acrylics from Winsor & Newton, the tube paints, Galleria paints. Very easy, very simplistic. And we're just going to go ahead and get our base over the entire canvas. Fill in the tooth of the canvas and get some paint built up. That way we can start building up some of those fun, vibrant neon and the glow-in-the-dark layers. So we'll just keep working in these first base layers, and as I stated, this is about filling in the tooth of the canvas and just getting some build up. Originally, when I first started painting, I struggled because I could never get the paint to do what I wanted it to do. And the reason I never was successful and I hated it so much, and I say hate is a strong word, right? I hated it because I didn't take the time to prep my canvases or to build up the layers so I could get that smooth, relatively smooth texture that I was looking for. And as my techniques and my painting knowledge has grown, and I've gotten better over time to where I can actually make videos to kind of tutorials and show other people how to paint, I feel more confident in my artwork. I find that when you gesso and you build up those original base layers to get the tooth filled in, you get a lot better painting results, and it's just easier to work with the paint. Whether or not you use additives or mediums, whatever you do, building up the color and filling in the tooth of the canvas is important. Now, I'm not saying you can't, like, you know, do dry brushing and different techniques like scrumbling over the canvas and things like that to get you know, the paint to ride the tooth of the canvas to give like a stippled look or things like that. But even then, you need to have an underbase color normally for those layers to show up. So building up those base layers is the first step, and really just enjoying the process. And because they are base layers, you can use those to kind of tone the other layers as you apply more. And in our situation, we're going to be building up, you know, splatter and polka dots and different types of like abstract layers and neons and glows, and we'll intensify that as we add the subject later on in the overall painting itself. But we want to have a lot of those undercolors showing through. So we're going to choose a lot of opaque colors. We're going to lay it in very thick, and then we're going to kind of just spread that paint out throughout the process. And I'm really going to focus on the outside edges of the canvas where I know that the subject isn't going to cover, right? So like we know that we're going to bring in the subject. He's going to be in the middle of the canvas, and he's going to have arms and legs, and he's gonna be like the centerpiece, right? So he's gonna be a little bit darker. He's gonna have the overall same color combination that we're using for a lot of the splatters and things, but we need to build up those layers. So I'm also gonna, again, still go over the interior of the canvas, even if we're not gonna be, it's not gonna be visible when we put the subject on, but I'm gonna use it as an opportunity to fill in the tooth of the canvas throughout the process. So the colors that we're gonna be using range in brand. I'm gonna use Liquitex as well as Winsor & Newton for these first few layers. A lot of Winsor & Newton. So right now I'm using a Liquitex pink. Now this is just a standard pink. It's not hot pink or anything like that. I also have a magenta as well. This is basically a magenta, guys. I mean, it's leaning toward a little bit more like a light pink, but it's labeled as magenta. And we'll go ahead and layer this in. It's very thick paint, and I'm not being afraid to just layer it in. You'll also see me, I'm going to go ahead and take this around the edge of the canvas there, and I'm going to go ahead and push that around, because I'm going to paint the outsides of the canvas a little bit different. The tops and the sides are going to be the same lighter color tones as the actual front of the canvas, and then the bottom is going to be darkened out quite a bit with a Mars black stripe, and then I'm going to bring those splatter effects over the edges, and then I'm going to kind of blend them in here and there until I'm really just happy with it. So the bottom of the canvas is going to be a little bit darker, and then as the eyes kind of follow up, you'll see all those splatters and then the lighter colors around the outside edges of the canvas. Now, as always, guys, just remember this is going to be a real-time video, so you can see I'm just casually, just enjoying the painting process. And this is a substantially large canvas, so it does take the time investment to paint it properly. And so as we roll through the process, I'll start to refine my painting process. Sometimes I'll even go as far as to just apply the paint directly to the canvas straight from the tube and then just go ahead and blend that in. And I'll do that very often because of the amount of paint that I'm layering on. It's just easier to apply it straight to the canvas, especially because these base layers aren't really mixed colors or specific mixtures. I'm going to go ahead and just use straight colors straight out of the tubes, and I may mix them with a little bit of white. You'll even see the titanium white start to be introduced in a second with some of these colors to blend them in. But for the most part, it's just straight up colors straight out of the tube. So I'm really just bringing that pink in around the outside edges right now. And then here in a moment, we're going to pull out some titanium white and we'll start to blend that in with some purple as well. The first purple that we're going to be using for this process is a very dark purple, and that being Winsor & Newton Winsor Violet. Now that is a dark, vibrant, absolutely gorgeous. It is amazing, and it's okay. It is a little bit translucent, at least I think it is. So it's not very super opaque unless you put it over an existing color. Like if you put it over black, it's super gray. It looks really good. But when you put it over white, it's a little bit translucent. It needs something added to it to thicken it up and make it more opaque. So when we add a little bit of white to it, it becomes like a nice lavender color. Now I do have actual lavender, but I'm not going to pull that out. I'm just going to use that Winsor violet to mix those colors. That way I can blend that dark violet into some of those lighter colors. And we'll blend that into these pinks as well. So we'll start to add titanium white to this magenta. We'll blend that down into the canvas a little bit, and we'll just continuously build up our layers until we get into the blues and even greens and pinks. And we're going to use a little bit. We're not going to use green. I really stayed away from green on this background. Now, some green did I feel like I just went on a tangent. So there are some areas where green was created because I mixed like orange and some other colors, and that's fine. I did use a little bit of turquoise, so we'll bring in like a little dollop of turquoise later, and I do like a little bit of a drip effect. But I didn't go out of my way to introduce any greens, and I'm surprised by this. And I didn't really even think about it while I was painting the background, but yeah, I left green out for the most part. And we'll have to do another one in the near future where I just use a bunch of green. So maybe in the near future we'll do another background like this. I have another painting idea, but I got some other things to do, so we'll get around to it eventually. So with the lack of green there, we'll go ahead and continue painting this out here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and sit off to the side and let you guys just really enjoy the background music and just enjoy the painting process. And I'll kind of pop in here in a little while and we'll just talk about some of the painting processes and what I'm thinking when something comes up on the screen, guys. So sit back and enjoy this real-time painting, and let's go ahead and build up some of these opaque layers and build up these base colors, fill in the tooth of the canvas and really make it look full as it needs to, so that way we can start to get ready to build up that subject in the very middle of the canvas. Alrighty, so this is where you're going to start to see me introducing more titanium white into these blends. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of feather and taper the edges of the purple and the pink. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm just going to try to create a nice blend of the purples and the pinks in the mid of the canvas. So we're not going to really blend it all the way down into the middle. That's going to be a completely different color, and that's also going to be where the subject is going to be. So like I said in the very beginning of the video, we're going to go ahead and cover that with paint throughout this base coating background process. But a lot of those colors are going to get covered up, and that's okay. So I'm also going to try to bring this up and over the edge of the canvas a little bit. I probably, in hindsight, should have done this a little bit more as I was painting, but I sporadically brought it up and around the edges of the canvas. It gives it a more finished look when it's all said and done. And at the very end of the process, before painting the subject, I'm having to go back and paint the edges up and around. That way it just looks more filled out and it looks complete. If I leave it a solid color, yeah, it's okay, at least it's painted, but it really doesn't look like amazing. You know, we want that next level when we're working on a canvas this big, and we want it to be absolutely awesome. So bringing those existing blended colors up and over the edges of the canvas there are very important, and it's easier to do it now, but I'll do it at the very end, and it makes life more difficult on me, but we'll get it done. So here you can see we're just going to go ahead and blend those colors in there. I'm using quite a bit of paint, and I'm not being afraid just to really throw it in, layer it in. We're going to go over this again with splatters and drips and all sorts of other things. So all we're really looking for is just good coverage. That's really what we're aiming for. And if you happen to get just a fun color combination as you're mixing and blending colors, if they're still active and wet and movable, then all for it. Just everything in the process is just a fun design, and we're just going to go ahead and blend the colors out, feather the edges, introduce more colors, and then we'll continue on the process here. I do find myself really enjoying painting large canvases, but it does take more time just to get to where you're actually working on what feels like the massive part of the canvas. Because the canvas is so large, you're working on just kind of the outskirts or just like more so of the background before you can get to any like subject in the middle. And I feel like that more so for this painting because I'm painting the subject after I fully paint the background, instead of me just like painting a part of the background, working a little bit of subject, another section of the background, and going back and forth and painting it, you know, throughout. And I am really definitely separating this out and just like fully painting the background, except for some slight details here and there throughout the process or in later stages of like finalizing the highlights and some of the neon glows, because I kind of want to blend a little bit of the background into the subject, but mostly I'm separating out the full background painting and the subject. The best way I can compare to that is, you know how when you're watching some of these landscape videos, a lot of people will kind of paint out the sky, then they'll start to work into some of the trees in the background. The Bob Ross style, that's the way Bob Ross usually painted, is he started at the very far back with the sky, then the mountains, then the tree, and then he slowly worked into like the foreground and things like that. So he just built up those layers over layers and worked towards you in stages. Whereas other artists will specifically, like, you know, just jump around the canvas and they'll paint freestyle, and that's not really what we're doing here. In a way, is because we're separating those two sections out into two stages. And I kind of want to mention that just because it's in my mind when I'm painting something like this, is this portion of the painting has to be done to reach the fun stages of the subject. And although this may not be the most enjoyable part of the painting, because if you paint a lot of the same style or do a lot of reproductions of the same painting, the background or some of these little smaller aspects of the painting can get very monotonous, and then you're really anticipating and looking forward to painting the actual subject, which brings the painting truly alive. But definitely let me know in the comments, guys, what portion or stage of the painting process do you enjoy the most? Do you really enjoy meticulously putting in the background, or do you enjoy mainly the subject, or do you enjoy just the highlights at the very end? What is the most enjoyable portion, or do you look forward to during your crafting or painting process? Do you do it in stages, or do you enjoy just paint freely, moving around the canvas in a just random way to get the look that you want? I'm kind of interested to see what or how some of those who view this content enjoy their own painting processes, and see what stages they enjoy watching the most. Maybe I'll do a little bit more focus on particular areas when I'm layering out paintings like this. Now, of course, this is mainly just the background in live format here, but we'll definitely be rolling into the subject in the time-lapse version of this. But it's definitely a very fun process, and it really, even as soon as I put the first black layer, the silhouette of the T-Rex onto the canvas, it immediately pops and brings it to life. So it's going to have a lot of whites and black layered in there with a lot of those neons built up on top of it. And I'll even probably use a little bit of the palette knife just to get some very thick layers and textures over the T-Rex body. Still working into those purples and a little bit of that titanium white here, just blending them out very nice and neat and tidy. And we're just going to, here in a few moments, we'll be pulling out some crimson. That's super exciting. It's going to add a splash of color, and then it'll get even more bright and colorful as it works down towards the bottom of the canvas. Alrighty, so I'm kind of done with the pink and the purple for now, and as you can see, I'm just letting my paintbrush just ride over the tooth of the canvas that is coming through these layers, and I'm just leaving some cool, just titanium white streaks across the paint, and some of that will survive the process as we blend in more neons here in the mid-process. But we're just going to go ahead and taper some edges here and there, and kind of finesse some titanium white into some of these edges and layers, because we're about to start moving into another color, and we're going to be using an actual kind of like a red color. I actually believe I've started with a crimson. Most of the reds in this are crimson until I start to work into any other of the neons, and even then the reds really don't get covered up too much, because I want some of that bright radiant red crimson to show through, and that is a Winsor & Newton Galleria paint out of the tube, not mixed with any other colors unless we're just blending the edges with the titanium white. But it's going to be very vibrant in comparison to the nice subtle magenta and Winsor violet we've been using so far. So just remember, the Winsor violet is our base coat, and then we're going to come in with other purples and pinks throughout the process. It's going to really brighten it up and intensify with those neons. Just using that titanium white to kind of just create little patterns and brush strokes here and there, however I feel like the paint wants to move. If I feel like adding an extra swipe across something, then I'll put it there. Whatever you do, just be free with it. The more free you are and the less restraining you are throughout this process, the more enjoyable you will be. If you put a paintbrush somewhere and you don't like it, just be patient. Sometimes that paint stroke will become less noticeable as you finish out the rest of the background, and you can always come back and touch things up. However, I do recommend you kind of remember the overall color combination that you're using from some of these base coats, because not absolutely everything will get covered up through the process, so you need to remember what colors you use in case you do want to touch something up. Washing off my brush here, and then we'll get ready to roll into the next color. I'm really happy with it. Hang tight while I get some paint out. Now we're rolling into session number 2. As you can see, my shirt did change there, so I let that dry overnight, and we're going to move on with the next color here as promised. So here we are. I've got crimson on my palette now. And some of you might be wondering, what is under the aluminum foil? I actually have a small palette of oils there, and to seal those up and keep them from like curing out while I'm working on other paintings, I will cover them with like saran wrap or aluminum foil. But that's just the corner of my palette there is just oils, and I don't want this mixed with the acrylic, so they're still covered up there. But I do have like a third, probably a 3/4 of the palette that I can work with, and of course I'm layering in a lot of different colors throughout the process of creating this background here. Here we are, crimson. It almost looks orange on the camera when in comparison to the magenta and the violet, but it really is just a crimson and a very radiant bright red. It looks really good. Some of that will get darkened out through the process, especially at the bottom of the canvas in later stages. So some of the reds that we implement will get covered up, and in doing so, the red undertones will darken up quite a bit. But the top of this, we're going to start to introduce a little bit of that titanium white there, and we're just going to feather and blend out the edges. It's almost like we're creating clouds. That's really what it is. It's almost like we're kind of feathering clouds in different textures and different layers, but we're going to go ahead and use our red to create a large red section on the canvas, and then feather and blend that out. Now, if you want hard edges on the different layers of paint here when you're introducing new colors, you can do that. Leave those hard edges, but if you want to feather it, you can introduce a little bit of titanium white, or a little bit of water, a minuscule amount of water, and feather those edges a little bit. But look how bright that is in comparison to the rest of the canvas thus far. using that titanium white there and pushing it down into the crimson instead of necessarily just pulling that crimson up into the surrounding area. We want to make sure that some of those purples and pinks around it don't get completely washed out just because we're adding a heavier color to the canvas here. Bring a little bit of that red up, bringing in, kind of just mixing those colors around. Spread the joy, right? Spread it around the canvas, and but just kind of rein yourself in. Don't go crazy with it, but just still have fun with the process. See, the titanium white is really blending out that edge there, softening it quite a bit, and then we'll just continue having fun with the process here. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of that crimson and bring it down a little bit, and we're just going to create kind of like a red to orange kind of area down here towards the bottom, because we're going to start to introduce some more colors here. So we're working with the crimson now. We're also going to introduce some turquoise and things like that. Most of these are Winsor and Newton paints straight from the tube, and we're just using these very, very generously. I'm laying on a lot of paint on the palette here, and we're just going to feather some of those edges and leave some of them kind of hard edges to where it's really abrupt changes in color. So we're going to leave that little crimson patch at the bottom of the canvas there, and then we're also going to get out some turquoise in just a second, and we're also just going to layer that in. Now, a lot of that turquoise will get covered up in later layers, and that's completely okay. Again, we're filling in the tooth of the canvas, just getting some paint on it. Just throw some paint on the canvas and let's rock and roll. Now, one thing is I do have a reference photo that I am kind of generally working from. It's just a silhouette of a T-Rex, and I'm going to doctor that quite a bit in the other portion of the time-lapse painting of this whole painting, right? But this video is just about us real-time painting the background here for my members and my subscribers. However, when I do get to that, you'll notate that I'm going to have the dinosaur kind of coming across the canvas, and then you'll see the lower legs and the arms. And what I'll do is at the end of each session, before I go to bed, because I'm painting all at night, before I go to bed, I'll take a snapshot of the canvas. And in Procreate, where I have my reference photo kind of input, what I'll do is I will upload the newest, freshest photo of the canvas into the digital software and apply it as the background. So as I can log in, you'll slowly see the evolution of the background evolve as the sessions increase. It's pretty cool. So whatever the reference photo is for the subject, it doesn't matter. I know that I'm going to have the dinosaur with a lot of black highlights and silhouette, and then we're going to have a lot of glows and neons applied as his body, and we're just going to really have fun with that design. But the subject that I have in the digital art is not the final dinosaur, because it's just a generic stock created photo, and I'm going to doctor it quite a bit in the final effect when I paint it on the canvas. So don't get hung up on the dinosaur, focus on the backgrounds, and I'll post that at the very end of the video. We got a long while before we get to that, but just be aware that the image is really going to transform as we go through the painting of the background. It transforms quite a bit, and when you do take those screenshots and update the background in your digital art as you go, it's just really fun to see the transition between the layers. It's pretty cool. So here we are, we got that turquoise. This is the Winsor & Newton Galleria paint straight from the tube. It is a magnificent color. Look how deep and rich that is. Now again, it's going to get covered up quite a bit, but it's still a really great color. And I'll kind of cascade that around throughout the lower portion of the canvas. We're also going to use a little bit of that in the upper right hand corner of the canvas as well. And we're also going to introduce some ultramarine blue along with that. So sit back, guys. We'll go ahead and paint out this turquoise spot here, and then we'll roll into some more painting in the upper right hand corner, as well as introducing some more colors. Let's get some more colors out soon, right? Alrighty, so with the turquoise pretty much layered in the way we'd like there, we're also going to go ahead and paint that upper right hand corner as I spoke of just a second ago. And this is just the base coat. We're going to go over this with another blue here, and it's really going to kind of change the way it looks quite a bit. We're also going to go ahead and get this ultramarine blue out. Very good. Now, I kept away from Winsor blue, which is substantially darker. I wanted this background just to be nice, light, and airy. If you wanted to make it super dark, you could, if you wanted to go for that. But I just wanted to have a bunch of mid-tones in the bottom and then have a bunch of brights at the top. And then we're just going to stay away from too many dark colors. The subject is going to be quite dark, and it's going to pop against it. But yeah, it's going to look absolutely great. So we're just going to go in with ultramarine blue, skip the Winsor blue, and we'll continue on with this color here, blend it in a little bit. And again, might get covered up a little bit throughout the process of other layers and other sessions, but it'll be good. We're also going to go ahead and jump screen in just a second here, and we're going to go ahead and work on that upper right hand corner. You can see I'm also blending a little bit of that ultramarine blue in with these turquoise colors here, just kind of filling the gaps, making sure that the color is not just completely solid blue, but we're blending that out quite a bit there. Just mixing some colors up on the canvas. Everything's still wet and active, and just changing things up a little bit, making sure it's not too monotonous and just too easy, right? Not solid colors all around. It'd be cool to do just a solid color background, and maybe we'll do one for another painting in the near future. So let's transition here into a different camera view, and here we are layering in this ultramarine blue. We're going to do this very thickly, so we're going to go ahead and blend that in. You can see it already pulled a little bit on that turquoise. It's blending it in with that ultramarine blue there, and we're just going to kind of feather this out quite a bit. Now you can see that I'm not applying enough paint right there, so it really just rode the tooth of the canvas. You really just got to push that in there. I'm trying not to apply too much water because I don't want the paint to thin out too much. I'm really trying to cake it in and make sure it fills in the teeth. If you apply a lot of water, it thins it out to where you get a lot of color and it stretches it a lot further, but it doesn't give you the overall same thickness of paint layering over. So, however you want to paint it, whether you want to be super wet with water and blend it out really thin, or if you're going for that thin looking like film paint over the background, or if you want to layer it in super opaque and thick, you can do however you want. I'm just going to go ahead and feather some of this out here, spread the color around a little bit, spread the love, right? And we're going to go ahead and just spread it out, and then I'll blend it in a little bit with some titanium white there from the same palette. So there's titanium white there. It's almost like we're making a cloud, right? How magical. So you don't have to go crazy with it, just blend it in. I'm trying to stretch out that paint a little bit in different directions, just giving us more coverage with the same overall color. And again, we're going to leave some hard edges on this, and we can feather them here and there if we want to. But adding that titanium white to the outside edges of that turquoise with ultramarine blue really does look great. It's a good color combination, and it looks very thick in comparison to the paints around it. Because it's a darker paint, it looks thicker. But it's really relatively it's the same overall thickness as the other colors. It feels thicker because it's darker. Alright, so with that upper corner kind of painted out a little bit, and you can see I really did spread out the blue quite a bit. It looks really nice. The dark, rich blue with the faded edges looks really nice. Some of that's going to get covered up. It's just going to happen. I know it's tough to do that sometimes when we paint out some background or something that's really looking great, but you plan to paint like a subject or another layer over it, and it's going to change the way it looks. But you got to do it. You have to do what you plan to do from the beginning. And if it means covering something up that's looking really great, then that's just part of the process. Now, you'll see me now, and for the most part in the future of the video here, I'm going to take paint directly from the tube at times and just apply it directly to the canvas. It's gonna force me to paint with a lot more paint there, and it's just easier. It's easier than reaching down and grabbing paint off the palette with the brush and then transferring it to the canvas. I could just go ahead and just use paint and just wiggle it across the canvas directly from the tube and then just spread it out. Especially when I'm not worried about controlling what the paint does. I'm just going to let the paint do what it needs to do, and I want it to lay in the canvas really thickly. We're spreading that orange out quite a bit there, and a lot of this lower portion of the canvas is going to be an orange overall theme. So you're going to see a lot of orange, some kind of brownish colors are created, a little bit of blue and turquoise, and we're going to use a lot of yellow as well. Now the yellow that we're going to be using for the most part, at first we're going to be using cadmium yellow hue, but this is cadmium orange hue from Winsor & Newton Galleria tube paints, and it's a very great color. I've used this same color for a very long time, and it's always done me right. I've never really had any problems out of it. It can be a little bit translucent if you thin it out with water or a medium, but if you lay it thick like I just did, it really does give a great coverage. And of course you can do more layers if you wanted to, and really just thicken it out quite a bit more. Alrighty, so what we'll do is we'll continue on with the same cadmium orange hue from Winsor and Newton, and we'll go ahead and smear this on directly out of the tube. It uses a lot of paint, but hey, it's worth it. Now you'll notice that the orange is really going to blend well with that crimson, as well as down into those blues and a little bit of that purple down towards the bottom of the canvas. We're also cascading that up into the middle of the canvas as well. We're really just trying to get full coverage at this point. So we're going to go ahead and use a lot of orange here. We're going to use a little bit of dollops of yellow here in a few moments. We're just really trying to get full coverage over the canvas. Now, a lot of this is going to get covered up, so it won't be the most focal point of the canvas, but we're going to go ahead and give it full coverage. It also kind of gives us a mind's eye of how the overall canvas is going to lay out. And we're going to go ahead and pull this up into some of that crimson, blend some of those colors out a little bit. Now, that previous color is dried pretty much already. So we're just going to go ahead and blend that onto that dry paint there. We'll continue that up into the pinks and the purples and a little bit of that blue there. That blue really does have a harsh line right there where it goes under the orange in the upper right hand corner. And as we kind of went with blue layers and splatter effects, a lot of that will get phased out. And the silhouette of the actual subject T-Rex is going to cover a little bit of that anyways. So although that's a very hard edge, it's going to get kind of pushed back into the background as we cover it up with later stages of the painting process. As a reminder, that will be in the time lapse of this overall painting, and you'll be able to see this background painted in a full time lapse, as well as the actual subject itself. It's going to be much faster pace, and it's going to be more of a full tutorial video, but again, it will be time lapse. This is the real-time version of us just painting an abstract background, which is kind of fun. I'll have to make another one of these in the near future, painting something different or new, or maybe another dinosaur, who knows. Maybe we'll make the background slightly different or more runny, or we'll kind of switch things up a little bit and make it a little bit more entertaining if we can. But the most important thing is just to learn something new, and maybe I do something different than you do, or you do something different than I do, and you just get into painting different things that you usually don't paint. So a lot of the things that I paint here in the studio are things that I've never painted before ever, and it's all just new skills we build, right? So we're just going to continue smearing out this paint here. I'm almost not working fast enough, honestly. It's trying to dry in the overall kind of shapes that I had applied to the canvas. And I have to do a little bit more rough brush strokes as I work towards the bottom left corner and around to the middle of the canvas to get that paint to move around, because it's kind of like settling up in those little grooves that I had like just smeared it into. But it's pulling, it's moving around, it's getting there. Now you can see I'm going over those blue layers, and it's going to wash a lot of those blues out, but it will darken the overall orange paint that we're applying here. So just different ways to layer the paint, and the bottom of the canvas is going to look a lot darker than the upper portion, and that's just a fun aspect of it that's just happening to turn out this way. It's not really something I planned, but that's just the colors that I applied in the order that I applied them. So pretty cool overall. We'll just go ahead and take our time. We're going to go ahead and work through the orange here, and then we'll work into the next color here in a few moments, guys. All right, getting done with that little orange section there, and then I'll kind of move over to the middle of the canvas there. That's where I have smeared more of that paint out from the tube. This is actually drying out quite a bit, and it didn't want to move freely, so I do apply a little bit more paint to it just to thicken it up a little bit and get it to where it's like moving around again, because I'm not adding water to it. We're keeping the paint very thick and allowing it to get into those teeth of the canvas. I'm going to introduce a little bit of turquoise here, and we're going to kind of just blend that in, add a little bit of darkness to it, and we'll kind of just like mix it up a little bit. We're also going to introduce a little bit of neon yellow in a moment. And when I say neon yellow, I mean neon yellow. It is extremely bright. I believe, if I recall correctly, I used Winsor & Newton cadmium yellow originally. So I think we're going to go to cadmium yellow in just a second, and we'll use that along this area just to kind of give it some bright yellow tones. And again, a lot of it gets covered up, but this far right-hand corner in the bottom will be visible. So I do like a little bit of a streaking motion between the orange and the yellows, and it's just really cool looking. Now we are introducing a little bit of that turquoise, and that is a Winsor & Newton. It's just a plain Jane color. We're not mixing it up any except for just the existing blends on the canvas. So if it blends a little bit with that orange, gives us a little bit of a brown or a darker shade, then that is completely okay. Moving that around a little bit, just kind of filling in some of this white canvas here, blending that around to the other portion of the turquoise and that ultramarine blue. Kind of pushing that around the ultramarine blue. I'm really just making sure that I'm filling in all of the white spaces where the teeth of the canvas is just really visible. And then we'll work our way back towards that over the right-hand lower corner again. As you can see there, I'm trying to blend a little bit there, just do a light blend between the orange and the blues. I don't want it to have too much of a hard edge there, so a little bit of feathering and blending right there means the world as far as just making it look soft. So at this point here, we'll get ready to get out the yellow in just a second, and it'll really kind of brighten things up a little bit in this lower portion of the canvas. All right, so at this stage, I've decided to hold off on yellow just a little bit more, and we're going to apply a little bit more crimson. I really like the red and orange combination here, and although it's going to get covered up quite a bit, I wanted to apply a little bit more red around this like upward trajectory peninsula of orange here. So we're just going to get directly from the tube, just kind of scatter this out throughout the canvas, and we're just going to go ahead and smear it in. Again, covering it up a lot, but some of it may survive through like little peaks here and there of like different body parts as the actual T-Rex is on the canvas. And even if it doesn't get covered up, then you know, all for the better that it looks good. If it does get covered up, then hey, we filled in the tooth of the canvas and we don't have any white showing through. It also allows me to really sit back. So as I get done with certain like sessions, so like obviously I didn't paint all this in one session. I think I took about 5 or 6 sessions, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes at a time at the most. So I really cascaded it over multiple days to like a week, right? I'm not rushing to get it done at all. I'm not doing it for a customer. I'm not doing it for commission. I'm just making it, and then it will be up for sale, right? But I sit back, I take screenshots of it, and then I see how I like it. I just let it just like smolder, let it smolder. Just think about it. How do you like how it looks? Do you want to add something to it? Do you need more color in a particular area? You want to change the color? And then I do that throughout the entire painting process. And I'm thinking about how my subject is going to sit on the canvas and what's going to be covered up, what will be visible. It's good just to kind of fully paint it out, even if it's going to be covered up by something, just so that way you in your mind's eye kind of had an idea, and it shows also completion of that stage of the project. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So we're going to finish up with this red here, and then we'll kind of move on to the next color, which will be yellow. Yeah, I said yellow. We'll finally get to that yellow color, as I promised a moment ago. All right, so I'm liking the red and the orange. It looks great, and we're going to go ahead and start to use a little bit of yellow here. Now, again, we're going to use neon yellow here shortly. However, this is Winsor & Newton Galleria paint from the tube, and it is a cadmium yellow. Very transparent color, so I would just use it sparingly. I wouldn't use it to kind of like use a very opaque layer of it unless you're mixing it with something, but it's very transparent. And I'm going to go ahead and just directly from the tube just apply this to the canvas, and we're just going to finish filling in a lot of these the white canvas here. We're going to fill it in, we're going to get it covered up. I'm also going to kind of use this color sporadically throughout the rest of the canvas just to kind of brighten it up, give it a little bit of yellow tinge just here and there. You can see I'm applying a little bit to that orange and red transition there. And we're just going to really blend it out. So before it dries up too much, we're going to get our brush here, and we're just going to go ahead and smear it around, get the canvas covered up, and blend it in. And again, this yellow-orange combination in the bottom right-hand corner is going to survive. And even if again it gets washed out later on, we'll bring it back in other layers of paint. So I do have to clean my brush a little bit every so often because I am going to be blending those colors, but I don't want the orange to overpower the yellow, which is very easy to do so. All right, so at this point, I'm really happy with how it's turning out, and we've finally got the canvas completely covered, and we can start like nitpicking over some colors of the base coat now. So I'm going to apply this turquoise little dot here, and it's supposed to be like a little splatter, but it doesn't have like any like splattering effects around it. And this in the future of the painting video is going to be a little bit of a drip action. So this will be visible even after the subject is on ever so slightly, and it will be a drippy look to it. But we're going to go ahead and layer that in now, so I can kind of have an idea where I would like that, and I can kind of have an idea of where I want to put things around it to where I don't cover it up and things like that. Because some of the paint splotches and splatters that we're about to go through now in session number 3, splatters and splotches, will be kind of randomly cascaded throughout the canvas, and I don't want it to kind of like blotch that out, because I really wanted some drip effects at the very end of the creation process. So right now I'm just using pure titanium white. We're going to start off with just the white splotches. They're the most bright and like wow right on the canvas type of splotches. So we want to make sure that we kind of pick a good place for those, and we're going to start off with a little bit of splatter. So I have a little foam board that I'm kind of leaning up against the back of the canvas, so that way I don't get any kind of overspray. And we're just using a brush, and here in a moment I'll just switch to my finger. Like I'll just apply a dollop of water to the paint, and what I'll do is I'll just gently sling and flick the finger so that it just splatters the paint in different directions. It gives very random and splotchy looks to it, and what I will try to do is I will try to sling my finger in the correct direction so that it looks like the paint splatter effect is coming from the central of the splatter. And then once we get the overall direction of most of the splatters, what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll paint the middle of the actual white splotch. And we'll do that throughout. And that allows you to also get a really deep penetrating color in the middle, and then on the outskirts it's kind of faded a little bit. It's like it's slurry, it's splattery in different directions, and you can kind of feather it. I use a fan brush throughout the process to kind of feather some of the edges, just to create like an outward motion. And it's a really easy process. It takes a little bit more time than it would be just to like literally just thin out some paint and just pour it on the canvas. But we're doing this vertical for one, and two, I really wanted to record it, and recording on the floor just, it's not a very fun experience to me. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I like recording up vertical like this, and us putting in the time to hand paint these onto the canvas, I feel like it's just a little bit extra fun and intricacy to the overall painting process. So I'm trying to get that over the edge of the side of the canvas, because again, I will paint over the edges and even around to the back of the canvas. Now, normally as I paint something this intricate of a background, as I paint from the front of the facing canvas to the sides and then to the back, every time I go around a corner, you'll lose a little bit of detail. So like these splatters won't necessarily go all the way over to the back, right? But the overall back of the canvas would have the same general paint theme that the sides and then the front do. And that back rolled over edge where the canvas is stapled to the actual framing of the canvas isn't as much of a priority as the sides. The sides either need to be painted all black or all white. I wouldn't go with all white. I don't know about how everybody feels, but white on white around the edges just make it look incomplete. You get what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't look finished. I'm sorry. You may have the tooth of the canvas painted over and it may be filled in, or you may have like textured palette marks on the sides where you like applied a lot of medium and then layers of white titanium paint or something, but it just looks undone. And if people are going to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars for a piece of artwork or an original, it needs to be complete. I at least want my customers and my art collectors to have completed, fully finished pieces of artwork. And I feel like if you don't take the time to paint over the sides and around, maybe to the back, you don't have to do that, but I do. But if you did, then you're next level, and it's a completed piece of art to me. So if somebody were to take it off the wall and then lay it up somewhere, they're like, wow, look, even the back of that canvas is filled in. And of course, I do also sketch on the back of every canvas with my artist information on it as well in a file, in a plastic wrap baggie. So all of that will be with the painting forever. But it's just super like refined and completely finished, because it all starts with just finishing out the sides and then moving on to the back of the canvas. Okay, a little bit of a tangent there. Yeah, but leave me a description below. Do you like to paint over the edges of the canvas, the sides? Do you paint along to the back of the canvas? I haven't seen many who do, but I'm pretty sure they are out there just like me. I do see a lot of people who do paint over the sides of the canvas, and kudos to you. I wholly support that, and I think that everybody should. I do paint some of the edges sometimes black, as I stated before, but definitely not white. So what I'm doing here, back to the art itself, I'm using a fan brush just gently to pull from the interior of the splotch outward, and it kind of pushes it out like a splotch or a paint splotch. But I also want that to make sure that it's like settling into the actual tooth of the canvas, and I don't get too much like scrumbling or dry brush over the tooth of the canvas there. I don't want that to look like it's riding the tooth of the canvas. I want it to be settled in like this is a very wet splotch. And I'll use the fan brush also to refine some of the outward splatters away from the actual splatter itself, like the main body of the liquid that splat down. So we'll also thicken that. So I'll go over the interior of the splotch as we move into the second half of the background of the painting. So I'll let it dry. The next session I come in, I'll paint it again and again until I get the overall color layers that I want to cover up the overall background, the original background. And we'll do that with all of the paint splotches throughout the entire process. So as we get to the purple and the pinks and any other colors that we do splotches on, we want to make sure that they look thick and they don't have like color seeping through them from the background. We want to make sure it looks full and thick. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and add a second little splotch. Now this will be a smaller one that's on the bottom of the canvas here. And when I paint off the sides, I'll roll this splotch onto the bottom of the side. So when I come in, so some of the paint I've already cascaded around the sides, like the purple here, for instance, on the left hand of the canvas. But some areas I didn't do that. So I have to take the time later to come back and paint the sides with the same general base coat or slightly different. And blend that around to the front, and then we'll carry these splotches over. So the bottom rail of the side of the canvas is going to be ivory black, and as it transitions to this purple on the side and the other side to the orange and yellow, at that point it goes up the sides to the top side of the canvas, that's to the top. it will have color that blends with the front of the canvas as well as continues around to the back. So what that means is that the very bottom of the canvas is going to be darker than the sides and the top. And it depending on how the customer hangs this, if they hang it high enough, you'll also see that when they look at it, because the bottom is darker, although it looks great, the eyes will be naturally triggered to go upward into the main source of the canvas because the sides are bright, the top's bright, the bottom is dark, and it's a nice transition between the two. And it just brings a lot of depth to the canvas. At least that's the way I look at it, and that's the reason why I painted it two different size, the size different general shades, as opposed to something I usually don't do. You know, I usually don't paint them all different. Usually they're all the same, blended to the front of the canvas. So thickening that out just a little bit, and again, I'll come back and I'll continuously darken these out over time throughout the rest of the content video. Once we get the base coat built up, we're going to start to move into working with neons. We're going to be very selective about where we start to apply these neons, just so they don't just overpower the entire painting. Remember that we're focusing mainly on the outskirts of the canvas itself, because we're going to have a subject in the very middle, and you'll be able to find that in the time-lapse version of this overall content. So you'll be able to see this entire painting finished out in a 6-time time-lapse in the future on my YouTube channel. It might be a month or so after this one is released here on my channel. Alright, so we're going to start to work into some neons now, as I just stated a moment ago on camera. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with a neon purple. That's going to be a neon purple, very vibrant. All these colors are vibrant, so I'll probably say that over and over again throughout this overall voiceover, but very vibrant. So we're starting off with the purple here, and we're going to add a purple splotch down the corner. Now, it's not in the very far corner, but it's down the corner. And then we're going to go over to this with a different color, which will be the hot pink. It's almost like a hot pink. It's supposed to be like a neon magenta, but it's basically like a neon hot pink. That's basically what it is, and it presents itself that way also. So switching to the brush now, I'm going to go ahead and apply this. It's very thin paint, unless you just happen to apply it over something that just blends with it well. But it's very thin overall compared to some of your other acrylic paints out of the tube. But it's a very universal paint, and this is the first time I'm using it on the canvas, and it works pretty good. So again, this is a neon purple, and then we'll zoom in here in just a moment, and we'll work into some of those neon magentas and hot pink. Most of this like hot pink in the corners, just to bring up some of the vibrancy of them and just the bubbliness of the background. And we're going to make those look like splatters as well, same as we did for the titanium white splotches at the very bottom left hand side of the canvas. All right, so here we are. We're going to zoom in right quick, and we're going to start to work with the hot pink. There we go. Now we're going to use the brush here to apply this over the existing magenta pink background. And because we base coated that pink where we expected to apply the neon pink, it just means that we don't have to put as many layers of that neon paint on the canvas as we would if we hadn't had that base coat. So we're also going to be continuously working in with the neon purple here on that splotch as well. But what we'll do is we'll start to build up that purple, and then we'll cascade this pink splotch over that purple, and we'll kind of layer them in. And then as we start to apply splatters with our finger throughout the process here in a moment, they will kind of overlay each other, but the pink would be over top generally the purple, and the purple would be over top of the blue, and so forth. Almost went off camera there as I paint out that other splotch also in the corner. And we'll just continuously build up our layers. I will also take this around the side of the canvas, but I really don't do that until later on. But we will do that. All right, so we're building up a little more of that purple color there, that purple neon. And I'm almost using my finger just kind of go ahead and begin the process of splattering here. Now, these are splatters, and we're kind of going and giving that splotchy look, like the splatter effect. However, we're going to continuously go over this for the next few moments, and then we will revisit this in later stages of the overall painting, because we're going to bring some of those neon pinks out as well. Just kind of cascade them out. We'll also give little sporadic, like, titanium white splotches later, little splatters here and there, and also some dark violets and things like that. So we got a long ways to go as far as the splatters, but applying a few here and there just to get the overall kind of direction of those splatter effects is completely fine. So sit back as we go ahead and flick a little bit of paint onto the canvas. Alright, so we're nearing the end of this session. We'll be rolling into the next one in just a second or two. And just be aware that these are neons and we are going to be using glows. Now, the glows are going to be like more so just like kind of like a glazing effect over some of these layers. And we'll be using them throughout, but mostly at the very end of the overall full painting creation. So those will make a reappearance in the time-lapse version when we paint the T-Rats. Because we're going to be very sparingly on where we apply those and where we want that glow to come through. But I will hit it with a neon light ever so often just to kind of get an idea how it could glow under black light. Once the neons are kind of applied, we're going to start to work in some glows. Now, the glows are a slow process, and let's be honest, the whites and the greens really glow the most. So we're really going to kind of lean into those. And then as we start to get the subject painted out, we can always come back and apply more glow paints throughout the process just to intensify that overall glow effect. Now, the neons under black light will have their own glow effect, but they won't glow in the dark. There's two different types of paint, right? So let's go ahead and get the glows applied at least a little bit. Alright, so we are working with this Windsor Violet, which is a really great, like kind of like royal purple color. It's absolutely fabulous against this like lighter colored background. And I think it pops really well against the neon hot pink that we're using for these splatters around the upper corners. And we're using those hot pinks to go over those existing magenta base coats that were underneath these. So we're using the splatters and different kind of spray effects just to go over those base coats and intensify those colors with more radiant and vibrant colors. So I'm kind of just cascading that over the upper edge a little bit, just kind of experimenting with how I want that like purple splatter to go up and over. And I will refine the edges later on towards the end of the overall background creation process before I roll into the main subject. Kind of just brushing it out there. I kind of want that to be nice and feathered, but at the same time I want it to have like a hard edge a little bit. And I really want that white right there to the left of that little purple splotch to really survive. It just adds a little bit more contrast to that splatter that the dark royal purple is applying to it. Alright, so with the main splotch kind of applied there, I'm going to start a little bit of the splatter paint effect. Now, I'm really trying to think about which layers I want to be on top of the other. So, as we near the very end of this video, you'll see that I will be very particular about which colors lay over the existing base coat splatters that are already there. So right now I do have the dark Windsor Violet that we're using here, and I'm going to use some splatter. I'm just going to use my finger and just splatter it on in different directions out and away from the central painted area. The same way I did for the other splotches on the bottom left with the titanium white paint. And that Windsor Violet going over that hot pink in splatter form looks absolutely awesome. The most important thing here is just to kind of rein yourself in and not just go absolute splatter happy with it. You need to have that negative space behind the splatter so that way it just brings more accent to the splatters when you get up on it. Now some splatters, when you back away further, they disappear into the background, and that's completely okay. Applying a little bit more of that Windsor Violet to this kind of right edge there. So we have the hot pink on the far side, then we go into a neon purple, and now we're on a darker Windsor Violet, and then just the contrast between all three steps and colors looks really great. And we'll expand some of that neon paint, the purple paint, over some of the violet that I'm applying now, and it will just darken those colors a little bit, create a little bit of a hard edge with a little bit of that white, blue, kind of ultramarine peeking through the background there. flicking my finger there just to get a little bit of application of splatter effect. There you go. Just different directions, just very random, but I want it to be sourced from the center of that main color. Up next, I'm going to use a little bit of titanium white here, and we're going to create some like kind of same splatter effects that we made in the lower left-hand corner. And these are just going to be visible behind the subject. So these are going to be very random and different sizes, and they're going to kind of cascade it from here up to the left-hand corner of the canvas. Not all the way into the corner, but just up to like that upper portion. And we're going to make sure that these have different random sizes. We don't want to cover up the background completely, but we just want it to be a nice titanium white splatter effect coming down off the top of the canvas. So at this point, I had to get some coffee. I always get it and sit it on my workstation. And by the time I get to remembering that I have coffee, and then in the art studio. It's cold. So I went and warmed me some coffee, and I am ready to go now. So you can see I'm starting to splatter those white splatters out and away from the main actual painted circular shapes, blobs, whatever you want to call them. So I'm just kind of feathering those out, spreading them out, and then I'll just use the fan brush to apply a little bit of splatter effect as well as my finger. And we're going to come back and do a little bit more splatter on later on down the road as we finish out a lot of the different splatter effects across the whole background. Alright, so as we zoom back in here, we're going to go ahead and bring some of these, hot pinks and a little bit of neon blue into this mixture here. I'm also going to try to thicken up a little bit around this Windsor Violet splotch that I applied. And we're going to try to incorporate a little bit more neon purple with this. And it's a really, really great bright color. And we're going to just kind of just move this around in different directions, and we'll come in with some splatter effect over some of these layers, and then we'll blend that into the middle to make it look like they splattered outward. And so the goal here is that some of this hot pink will kind of splatter across this neon purple, and some of the neon purple will kind of splatter against the Windsor Violet and around the blue. And it's like splatter on top of splatter, and it really looks great when it's all said and done. All those vibrant colors kind of cascading over each other with those darker splotches underneath. looking really good here. Now let's go ahead and bring that hot pink on the right hand side at the corner out and over the purple splotch there. So we're going to go ahead and make that as if that's the top layer over that purple. And we'll do the splatters later, right? So we'll do the splatters in different directions, but we want to make sure we kind of apply different layers to this so that we can kind of build up the thickness of those colors. And sometimes these paints come out a little bit like thin, so it does take quite a few layers just to get that nice thick layer. That way that background color is not as visible through some of these splotches on the upper layers of the background. And of course, periodically I am going to pull up that UV light as I did earlier in the video, and I'm going to go ahead and just see what it looks like under a UV light, or like a black light, right? So if the customer who purchased this had like a black light in the room, or they were to supercharge this with a UV light, what kind of glow or neon effects would I be getting out of the paint layers that I'm putting on? So the neons really do pop, they look great, and some kind of glow more than others. And obviously the white's not showing up because it's just a titanium white, but we'll go over it with some glows and things like that later on in the process, even of this video here. that will kind of create a glow effect over some of these layers. Like I stated earlier, that usually when you do have a glow effect, and when I say glow, I mean you charge it and then you remove the light from the room, and then what glows, right? Usually you get a lot of greens, and the white paint glow the best, the best colors. So they glow the hardest, and the other ones are just kind of faded, and they work. Like orange and pink and things like that, a little bit purple, but the greens and the white glow the best. So we'll do some glazing over some of these layers later on, even at the end of this video, and then at the very end of the time-lapse video, I will use some more glow-in-the-dark paints there as well, just to make sure we get really cool glow effects that really accent the overall painting when the lights are shut off. It's something small, but I really want to introduce a glow effect into this painting. So as we roll through this here, we're just kind of nitpicking over some of the layers here. I'll continue building up these splotches, and what we'll do is we'll work around to the left-hand side here in a moment, in the last quarter of this content video. Hope you guys are really enjoying this so far. Nice laid-back music. And all of this music was pulled from Creator Mix. It's a website and awesome content creators there, the Nimen brothers. They have all sorts of rock music and different like lo-fi genres that you can kind of add to your content just to up the level a little bit. Of course, I did enjoy overlaying some of their content music over these videos, and that is what you're listening to. So that's from Creator Mix. I will also leave a plug in the description below, just kind of giving them credit. If you want to drop over to their website or Spotify and check out their playlist, you can do so. Alright, so at this part of the game, we're going to go ahead and put the brushes down, and I'm going to start to actually apply just some of that finger splattered effect. And whenever I'm doing this, I'm already trying to think about which color layers or splatters are layered over which segment. So first we have the main base, then we have the vibrant purple, then we have the blue over the dark Windsor violet, and then we have these hot pink splashes over the purple and blues. And whenever I'm doing that, I'm trying to think about what splatters in what order I want to apply them, because they're so close together, they're going to be cascading over each other, and that's completely cool. So it's not just that. I want to also make sure that the colors that I splatter over other splatters have good contrast. So this neon blue that we're using, I want to make sure that it kind of cascades over some of this purple. I want to make sure that hot pink cascades over some of the blue, and the colors just really pop and they contrast well against each other. I'll even come in later with some of that titanium white or even that dark Windsor purple, and that dark purple just pops over all the layers and it adds some darkness to those splatters. And this is more so just about how you feel about it as you're applying it to the canvas, and it's designed to be fun. Okay, if you apply a splatter in the wrong direction, don't stress, just have fun with it and enjoy the process. Now you could go ahead and spray this with a water bottle and get a really cool drippy look effect, but we're going to hold off. We're going to do some drips at the very end of the background creation process. We may do some more drips as we finish up the silhouette of our subject as well later on in the time-lapse video. So if you see more drips appear like over the subject, don't be surprised, right? So sit back, guys. We're going to go ahead and just enjoy the process of just applying some of these splatters throughout the canvas. So even now I'm using that UV light just to kind of see how the colors would look under a black light or just some UV power, and they're looking pretty good in my book. So as we finish out that, we'll kind of move back down into the bottom left-hand corner, and then we'll also cascade it into the upper left-hand corner of the canvas. And we're just going to go ahead and apply a large orange splattered splotch here. And this is going to be a pretty large splotch before we move into any other colors here. But it takes a few layers just to build up the thickness of the paint that I want. Now I'm using the neon orange as well as folk art glow in the dark orange as well, so this will have a glow effect later on in the final stages. This takes quite a bit of painting just to build up these layers here. Alright, so I've got the general shape that I like. Now, as I spoke of a minute ago, I'm going to come in with some glow-in-the-dark orange as well. And this is a little bit more paled out. As you can see, it's changing the color of the orange quite a bit. And I'm okay with it at this stage, that's fine. But I do want this to be a pretty vibrant orange splotch. So whether or not this paled out orange will survive the final stages is yet to be determined. But this is applying that glow layer, so it will glow pretty intensely after this is applied. Again, like I said, it changes the color of the splotch. It just kind of pales it out a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to want it to keep that way. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and hit it with the UV light, see what it looks like again, and then we'll kind of move into the next stage here. So just seeing how those colors look there, the yellow looks absolutely incredible. So the yellow neon, oh, it's awesome. So once I kind of get happy with the overall splotches, and I can detail them a little bit more later on, which I will do so, is next we're going to go ahead and use, look guys, as artists, we use what we have around us. And I didn't have like a perfectly circle like stencil nearby. I'll print one later, that's fine. Anyways, for today, I wanted to make some polka dots, just something different, something to break off the overall kind of shape of the background, the cloudy look effect, and the splatters. And so this is like a little, you know, those little miniature like mini things that you can get in like Walmart or like just different stores where you break them apart like a peach and you get different like little miniature things. This is a miniature of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it's just so random. Hey, the Stay Puft guy on this little miniature circular base just works for what I need. And hey, he is an absolute awesome little handle for this little circular base, which I'm just dipping down in some paint, and I'm just gently rolling it around onto the canvas to get a nice silhouette of a circular silver dot, and we're polka dotting that off center every other line, and it's just going to be a really cool little aspect to in the upper right hand corner. So we'll do these layers and paint them, and they'll just be kind of in the background. It's just a little bit of level of abstractness, and it'll be pretty cool. The silver may make a comeback later on in the painting of the subject, so stay tuned for that, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're looking forward to that video over the next few weeks, and I hope you guys watch that video also, because you'll really be able to see this background truly transform in more of a time-lapse version. So that video will just run right on by. Just applying those little Stay Puft Marshmallow Man circlets across the canvas there, and then we'll fill those in with some silver paint. We'll do about 2 or 3 layers to get full coverage over the existing background, and a little bit of texture on those is completely okay. So I'm also going to use that same technique to kind of use the same circular pattern and give it some of that texture, the circular polka dot texture around some of the other areas. And I'm only going to use it very selectively, and I'm also going to go over those with some splatters later on to kind of blend them in. So some of the polka dots will be kind of fully silver whereas other ones will be silver with some overlaying splatter on top of them. So that way it looks like they're in multiple layers of paint. So some will be very prominent, some will be in the background, even under some of those layers. So it just varies on depending how I want those to look as I get to them in later stages. But starting off, I'm going to paint all of them absolutely silver. What silver am I using, you may ask? I am using a folk or craft paint, which is sterling silver. It's going to have a really radiant shine to it. It's going to look really good. I have used it quite often in the past in like dioramas and metal painting sculptures. It's the first time I've used it on canvas, so it's just something new and quite interesting. It is really fun to kind of mix different styles of paint, whether that's crafting or more gallery style paints. You know, a lot of people will mix like smooth textures and different things, but it's really cool to be able to pull out a lot of different variations of paints, not just different brands, and try them out on the canvas. And sometimes it turns out pretty cool. So here we are, we're going to go ahead and start painting these out. And it does take a few layers to get some really nice buildup. And I don't really mind if I'm leaving brush strokes in these. I'm hand painting them after all. And I'm also not using stencils. So they have a lot of raw edges to them, and I'm completely okay with that. If I wanted them to be very chiseled and symmetrical in every single way, I would have to use a stencil. Because just our hands painting circular motions like this without moving the canvas around, we're imperfect at times, and you can kind of see that in some of these circles as I paint them out. I'm also going to use a lot of paint, and I'm going to really layer it in there and kind of leave a lot of texture behind while trying to cover up as much of that background layer as possible as I layer in the paints. I think I probably do about 2 or 3 layers throughout the end games of the background as I work on other things. So sit back, we'll go ahead and paint these out in silver, and it will really kind of transform that upper left-hand corner quite a bit. All right, so as we get the last polka dot painted out there, and we will do some more layers later on. It's okay, I'll probably do one layer off camera. I'm not quite sure, I don't remember. But we are gonna roll into the next session here. Now, in session number 6, we are working on splatter, splotches, and drips. This is where I'm gonna start to introduce a little bit of water out of the spray bottle, and I'm gonna get some drips here and there. They're not super opaque drips, but they will be visible in some ways. And I'm going to be very selective about where I want those drips to be. So I don't want to leave so much drip material behind that it kind of makes me have to paint the subject even thicker than I want it to be. If I want some of those drips to go over the overlapping the subject, then I'll do that later on in the process, and I'll be very selective about the colors and how thick those drips are. I probably will bring some of those forward, but I'll be very selective. Now we're using some neon pink here, and we're going to go ahead and just bring this around. I wanted to go ahead and apply a little bit more paint to this upper corner, and we're going to go ahead and spread this splotch out here, and then we're going to go ahead and also splatter this around on some of these silver polka dots. Remember, I'm not going to bring it too far down because I don't want it to really hinder the subject that we're going to be painting, but also I don't really want to waste paint when I'm just going to be covering it up with that subject anyways, so there's no point wasting that paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint out the general layer here, and then we'll let this dry slightly, and then we'll just spray it, and all of this activated wet paint will just drip down. Now, it's easy to get out of control with these strips, but you just kind of have to decide how much of them you want and what layers and things like that. It's okay to go absolutely crazy with drips if that's the look you want. You just have to decide what you're going after for each painting that you're creating. Now I do go ahead and use the spray bottle on this upper left hand corner with this hot pink and also the blue in the upper side of the canvas, and that drips down. It doesn't bring a whole lot of paint down with it because I let it dry slightly, but I will go over it again later on in the end of this video, and it will bring a lot more paint down across the canvas. I'm working on this orange now, and I want the orange to kind of splatter and splotch across that white. Now I will come back and probably give that white a little bit of a glow in the dark overlay or a glazing, so that way it does glow. And we'll probably do that with a little bit of the orange as well. I'll probably wait until we paint the subject to do that. Using the fan brush to kind of feather and smooth some of those splotches out. You really want it to be more so thick as far as the splatter on the exteriors of those splotches where it exits the main part of the paint blob. That way it feels like that main blob was the source of that splatter, and the splatter is not just overlaying that blob. Does that make any sense? Okay, well, it does to me. So finishing up with that, we're going to go ahead and use a little bit of my finger here to do a little bit of flicking splatter action here. And we're just going to be very random. We're applying a little bit of white here. We're using a little bit of hot pink. And I spoke of this earlier in this content video. I told you that I was very selective about which color splatters I wanted to be in which direction and which ones I wanted to be over other underlaying colors. I really want to see that contrast as I apply those vibrant colors and neons over other layers. We'll also use, again, that titanium white just to give it some variations in brightness. That white really does show up well against those vibrant colors that we use in the mid layers of the background. This is a little bit of a process here, and it's also just artistically freeing. So just I'm literally stepping back from the canvas. I'm just really enjoying the process of just being very random and just having fun, just throwing paint onto the canvas. Now I'm not throwing like big globs on the canvas. I'm not doing that, but I am applying quite a bit. But it really is enjoyable. And at this point in the content and the session, I know that I'm nearing the very end game of the background, and I'll be able to roll into the subject here soon. So it's like one of those like end game sessions, and I'm just really super excited, and I'm happy with how it's looking. I'm standing back at times and just looking at it. Now at this point, I'm really nearing the end of the game almost, right? We're almost at the end of this video, and I'm getting out neon yellow. Yes, super exciting here. Now this neon yellow is radiant. It is so bright, and I'm going to be very selective about where I splatter this. I'm going to leave some little gloops, and we're going to do some dripping effect, because when I hit it with the UV light or a black light, this neon yellow sings. It is incredible. So I do hold myself back on it, but I do use it throughout the painting to give me like splatters and little drips here and there and little gloops, just to kind of break up the color on some of those pink and the blues and the violets. It's really cool. I also use that color to go over the bottom right hand corner where I have those deep reds, but I do that mainly when I'm painting over to the edges and the sides of the canvas, because I do paint those out, as I spoke of earlier in this video. Pretty cool, eh? I like how it looks, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video up to this point. We're about to roll into some small glamour shots, and of course that is one of the funnest parts of the video, because you get a close-up view of how it looks. Here we are rolling into one of the last drips here. Now, remember earlier in the video when I put that turquoise little spot there? Hey, there it is again. I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit of paint from the tube, and we're going to do a little bit of a drip effect. And it's just subtle, but it's there. And it kind of sets itself away from that orange and the red, and it's really noticeable in a way. And it just stands out. And it stands out against the white and the orange and that red, and it's very random, and I really like it. So a lot of that paint will come out very transparent as it drips, and that's completely cool. Applying another splash of neon blue to that upper left hand corner. It's the only little blue splotch up there, all by himself up there. And we're going to go ahead and apply a generous layer of paint there, and we're going to spray it. Spray, spray, spray. And we're going to go ahead and let that drip down. I'm also spraying that pink patch. It's going to bring some of that paint down. You got to spray it pretty hard sometimes, depending on how long you let that paint sit on the canvas. But it's just going to bring that paint right on down. So what I'm doing now is I'm using the existing water paths to carry away some of the paint off my brush. And it just thickens up those drip lines a little bit. It's kind of the old mentality that, or physics, that water that's already taken a path will tend to stay in that path. And it does do that. So there you can see I'm spraying it right there, and it's coming down, right down the canvas there. It's pretty cool, right? See, it's coming down through the pink there. Spray a little bit more, and then there's more of it. But as it dries, it keeps dripping down, so it's not like it's staying stagnant. It keeps moving until it dries out a little bit, and then it just leaves the residue behind. See, there's the water dripping off the bottom of the canvas, and I do have a bunch of paper down there to collect that because it is quite messy doing the drips like this. What do you think, guys? I believe this thing turned out absolutely incredible. Now, just remember, we are going to come in with glows after the actual subject is painted onto this canvas. And what are we painting? I really haven't talked about it a whole lot during this content video. However, just remember, we are going to be painting a T-Rex. Now, it's going to be from the kind of like the butt of the tail all the way to the head, and we're going to showcase the arms as well as a little bit of the legs rolling into the ankles or the feet, right? But this is going to be a large-scale painting, and the dinosaur will be painted in the same overall neons and glows to blend him with this awesome abstract background. Now, remember, this was specifically about us painting in real time for my members here on YouTube. If you're not a member, then this is just a preview of some member type of content. Now, if you are watching this and you're not a member, just remember that this is just released as a kind of prequel to me creating a membership tier on my YouTube channel. Once that membership tier is created, then this video will not be available to normal subscribers. So make sure you become a member. But otherwise, guys, I really do think that it turned out absolutely great, and the neons and the base coats that we applied to it really popped and looked really good. I really do like the kind of like little circular dots that we kind of layered some splatters over that, and we also applied some drips throughout the process. We can always come back later on and apply more drips to kind of blend the subject back into the background, but you may see some of that in the full time lapse of us creating the entire painting process, right? Because some of those drips and things you would want to overcast the actual subject itself, and you kind of have to wait till you get to later processes of the painting to kind of blend that in. So you can't do that in everything in this video, but you can kind of touch it up later on throughout the process just to kind of apply different layers, a little nitpicky here, things like that. Now, one thing you'll notice here is I did paint the bottom of the canvas in an ivory black. The top is a titanium white. And the reason for which is I'm going to kind of cascade some of these splatters just over the bottom of it. And if it's hanging very high on the wall, that black base coat on the very bottom edge of the canvas will make it look really kind of like abstract and poppy. So the splatter will kind of roll over the edge of the bottom of the canvas, and it will just look really cool. It will really bring the eye up into the canvas if somebody were to kind of look at the bottom of the canvas. And because the deep canvas has such a deep edge on it, you really do want to make sure you wrap that painting all the way around or finish those out in some way so the painting feels more archival and more gallery ready, right? But otherwise, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will catch you guys on the next awesome content. Make sure you leave a comment below. What kind of painting process throughout this did you enjoy the most? What would you like to see in the future? Do you want to see more abstract techniques? Like and subscribe. Later, guys.